What would you do if the boss you'd given 17 years of your life to laughed about firing you behind your back? What if he called you a worthless dumbass in front of your coworkers and not a single one defended you? Olivia Hayes was the quiet force behind Haven Ridge & Co. A success? She built the strategies. She managed the top clients. She saved the company more times than anyone knew. But when she saw the video just 27 seconds long, it shattered everything. No warning, no meeting. Just betrayal wrapped in bourbon and backhanded laughter. But Olivia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She smiled. And she started planning. What Brent Wallace didn't realize was this: you never fire the person who is holding your empire together. And when you do, you better pray she doesn't know exactly where the cracks already are. So what happened next? Let's just say Brent thought she was replaceable. He couldn't have been more wrong. Tap, like, hit share. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is about to show you what quiet revenge really looks like. I wasn't supposed to hear it. At least, that's what Brent Wallace must have thought standing in the center of that crowded rooftop bar, drink in hand, laughing like the world owed him something. But I did hear it. Every syllable. Every cruel chuckle behind it. The video came in at 1. Konya mo, sent from a number I didn't recognize at first. The message attached was only 3 words. You should know. I sat up in bed, heart pounding for no reason I could name yet. The city outside my bedroom window was quiet, save for the low hum of a distant train. I opened the message, still half asleep, and pressed play. There he was, Brent, my boss of 17 years, in a tailored suit and loosened tie, waving his glass of bourbon as if it were a scepter. The Haven Ridge & Co. annual staff party was always his stage. And that night, I was the punchline. She's such a worthless dumbass, he said, sloshing his drink with dramatic flair. The people around him, coworkers I'd known for over a decade, laughed in bursts, some uncomfortably, some like they'd been waiting for that moment. But don't worry, Brent added with a sneer. Next month, she's gone. Mark my words, she won't see it coming. The video cut off abruptly at 27 seconds. That's all it took. 27 seconds to reduce 17 years of loyalty into something disposable, to turn me into a joke passed around over drinks and empty smiles. I stared at my phone in silence. My fingers had gone cold. I could feel my pulse in my neck sharp and steady like a drumbeat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the words echo louder in my mind each time I hit replay. She's such a worthless dumbass. How many times had I come in early to rewrite his proposals? Stayed late on Fridays to smooth over his mistakes? How many weekends had I spent pulling together quarterly presentations while he played golf with clients using decks I built, ideas I authored? And still, somehow, this was the legacy he believed I deserved. I remembered the year my daughter got pneumonia. I left the hospital at 2:00 to attend a board meeting Brent had completely forgotten about. I showed up, eyes bloodshot and exhausted, so he wouldn't get chewed out by the firm's biggest client. I remembered defending him when others whispered that he didn't know the numbers. When clients asked, does he even read these reports? I covered. Every time, I believed loyalty meant something. But loyalty, it seemed, was a one-way street. What haunted me more than Brent's voice were the faces in the crowd. The people I'd trained, the ones I mentored when they were new, panicked, unsure of their footing. People who had once come to my office with trembling hands and tight deadlines, and left with clarity and calm. They were there too, smiling, watching. Not one person stopped him. I locked my phone and set it on the nightstand, staring up at the ceiling like the answer might be written in plaster. My chest ached not just from humiliation, but from the unbearable weight of finally knowing what I meant to them. Nothing. And yet beneath all that pain, something else stirred, quiet at first, then sharper. Not rage, not grief, something colder, something deliberate. I remembered what my grandmother told me when I was 16. After I'd been lied to by a friend I thought would never hurt me. The most dangerous people in the world aren't the loud ones. It's the quiet ones. The ones who listen. The ones who wait. Because when they finally speak, what they say has weight. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared into the dark until morning bled into the window blinds. And I made a choice. Brent thought I wouldn't see it coming. He was right. But only once. The next time, he wouldn't. At 8:00 sharp, I walked through the glass doors of Haven Ridge & Co. in my navy blazer and low heels, my usual Monday armor. I smiled at the receptionist like nothing was wrong. Stopped to refill my coffee. nodded at familiar faces in the hallway, and when I passed Brent's office, I peeked in with a soft smile. "Morning, Brent," I said. He looked up, clearly caught off guard for just a moment, then forced a smile. "Morning, Olivia. You good?" "Great," I said. Rested, focused, ready for a big month. "Glad to hear it." I turned and walked away, each step echoing with one simple promise. "You called me a dumbass. Brent, you're about to find out just how smart I really am." The hardest part wasn't showing up. It was pretending I hadn't seen the video. Every smile I returned, every meeting I sat through, every report I submitted as if nothing had shifted. That was the performance of my life. I'd always been composed, measured, dependable, a team player. But now, that calm became armor, not to protect Brent, but to build space between my silence and his arrogance. He didn't know I knew. That was the key. On Tuesday, Brent passed me in the hallway outside conference room C. His voice oozed casual charm. "Olivia, great job on the Henderson forecast. Clients were impressed." I nodded, smiling. "Glad to hear it." Inside, my stomach twisted. That forecast, he hadn't even read it. He'd presented it as his own again, just like he always did. But I didn't flinch, because the game had changed. And this time, I was watching him. That night, I opened the dusty black notebook I hadn't touched in years, the one I used to keep in my early days at Haven Ridge, before I stopped believing I needed to protect myself. Now, every page would become a map. I wrote down names, deals, contract dates, emails to export, weak points I'd known about for years but ignored for the sake of team unity. The longer I wrote, the calmer I felt. Still, doubt crept in. What if I'm overreacting? What if this is just ego? Maybe I'm just hurt. Maybe I should let it go. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the video replay in my mind. The slur, the laughter, that sneering line. She won't even see it coming. I opened my eyes and wrote 3 words across the top of the next page. "I see it." By Thursday, I began reaching out to clients, not overtly. Just soft check-ins, hope Q1 is treating you well, or thinking about some efficiency suggestions for Q2. The responses were almost instant. "Olivia, we've missed hearing from you. Your reports are the reason we stayed with Haven Ridge. If you ever make a move, let us know." I did let them know subtly. Nothing actionable, nothing that would violate policy, just enough to make them think, wonder. And I started gathering everything, archiving project files, downloading public-facing data from our shared drives, collecting client feedback emails I had ignored for years, all of it carefully labeled, saved securely. To them, I was just doing my job, but I was also preparing my exit and my leverage. The following week, I scheduled a lunch meeting with Elena Craig, a corporate attorney I trusted from an old consulting project. We met at a quiet bistro, the kind where no one asked questions if 2 professionals sat across from each other with serious expressions and closed folders. She listened closely as I laid out the situation, not the emotion, but the facts. "You've done your homework," she said, eyes narrowing. "You're not just reacting. You're positioning." I nodded. "I'm not trying to destroy anyone," I said, "but I won't be buried quietly either." She tapped her fingers on the folder. "Legally, you're in the clear, so long as you don't solicit clients while still employed. Afterward, that's a different story. I understand. And you'll need a new home," she added, studying me. "You won't just walk into another job. You'll need a stage." "I already have one in mind," I said. Vanguard Stratton & Co. had been circling Haven Ridge for over a year, offering generous packages to senior talent, especially those tied to big accounts. Their head of acquisitions, Julian Price, had reached out to me in passing at a leadership conference just 3 months earlier. "People like you don't get enough credit," he'd said. "If you ever get tired of carrying someone else's weight, come talk to me." I had smiled politely then, but now, his words had a different weight. I sent a brief message through LinkedIn. "Julian, your comment from last quarter stuck with me. If you're still open to a conversation, I may be ready to talk, quietly, for now." His reply came within the hour. "Let's set a call. I've been waiting for this." Back at the office, Brent was oblivious, still floating through meetings like a CEO in total control. In the elevator one afternoon, he turned to me with that same forced grin. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "Everything all right?" I tilted my head and answered with a smile. "Just focused?" "Well, stay sharp," he added. "Big month ahead." "Oh, I know," I said softly. "Bigger than you think." He chuckled, not catching the hint. He never did. I stepped off the elevator without another word, because pretending not to know, that was the most dangerous part of all. The weeks that followed were a study in contradiction. Outwardly, everything was the same. I arrived on time. I took notes in every meeting. I stayed late again, always the dependable Olivia. But inside, I had become someone else, someone quieter, sharper, watching every detail like a chess player planning 10 moves ahead. Every polite nod I gave Brent was laced with knowing. Every yes, sir, I answered was edged with calm calculation. And Brent, he had no clue. One Wednesday evening, just past 7, I was the last person on our floor again. A half-empty yogurt cup sat forgotten on my desk. My daughter, Harper, had texted me 2 hours earlier asking if I'd be home in time to practice her school speech. I told her I'd try, but I didn't. I stayed, because Brent had screwed up a pitch draft again, and our firm's largest healthcare client needed revisions overnight. And of course, he had urgent dinner plans with a supplier downtown. So once again, I cleaned up the mess. Except this time, I saved every version of the original draft, the time-stamped edits, and the final copy with his name on it. I archived the email thread where I reminded him to review it and his breezy, "You've got this," live response. Evidence. Not for HR, not even for legal. For me, for the day I'd need it. When I finally got home, Harper was asleep on the couch, her flashcards scattered on the coffee table. A plate of cold pasta sat untouched on the counter. My stomach twisted with guilt. I covered her with a blanket, kissed her forehead, then sat in the dark kitchen staring at nothing. My reflection in the window looked tired, faded. But something in my eyes, it had changed. Resolve. The next day, I met Julian Price in person. He'd arranged a quiet lunch meeting at an unassuming corner cafe. Nothing flashy. He wore a dark suit, and carried himself like someone who didn't need to talk loud to be heard. "Olivia Hayes," he said, smiling as he stood to greet me. "I've been waiting for this conversation." I smiled back. "Cool, but curious. Then let's make it count." We spoke for over an hour. I didn't offer too much, just enough for him to understand that I wasn't another mid-level manager looking to climb. I was the foundation beneath a CEO who had no idea he was already sinking. "I'm not here to burn bridges," I said near the end, "but I'm not walking away empty-handed either." Julian nodded. "We don't want your drama. We want your vision. And the trust your clients have in you, that's worth something." More than Brent realized. We agreed to stay in touch, quietly. Later that week, I took Harper out for pancakes on a Saturday morning. She wore her favorite overalls and brought her flashcards. She was practicing her speech about Katherine Johnson, the NASA mathematician who helped send astronauts to the moon. She was quiet but brilliant. Harper said proudly. People ignored her, but when they finally listened, everything changed. I looked at my daughter for a long moment, the maple syrup untouched on my plate. It was strange, the way truth found its way to you. Sometimes through your own child's school project. "You know what the best part is?" Harper asked, grinning. "What?" She never screamed. She just proved them wrong. By the following Monday, I began fading further into the background strategically. I started turning down public-facing meetings, citing scheduling conflicts. I encouraged Brent to take more credit in front of the board. Let him shine. Let him soak in the limelight, confident in his command. Meanwhile, I moved behind the curtain, talking directly to our internal data team, gathering insights from client accounts, and running retention forecasts Brent never even asked for. He thought I was shrinking. I was multiplying. That Friday, I received an unexpected message from Lena Matthews, one of our longest-standing clients and CFO of a medical software firm. She had once told me I was the only reason she trusted Haven Ridge. Her email was brief. "You've been quiet lately. Just checking in, everything all right?" I stared at her words for a long moment before responding. "Doing well. Just recalibrating, but always here to help if you need insight." Her reply was instant. "If you ever explore other options, we'd follow you without hesitation. Just say the word." I didn't say the word. Not yet. But I saved that email. And I saved the next 3 just like it. The break hadn't happened yet. But it was coming. I could feel it in the pauses during staff meetings, the glances between executives, the subtle shifts in Brent's confidence when a report landed with less polish than usual. Because I was done polishing, done covering. And if anyone noticed my silence, they didn't speak up. That was fine, because the moment I walked out, they'd finally understand what I'd been holding together all along. The quiet before the break. It's not peace. It's warning. The day Brent thought he'd fire me, I wore navy blue, not because I was sad, because I wanted to be remembered calm, clear, unbothered. By night, Zania, I already knew it was happening. There was a strange stillness in the air, like a stage before the curtain rises. Brent's office door stayed closed most of the morning. Denise from HR kept her eyes low every time she passed my desk. People weren't talking, but they were listening. I smiled at everyone who glanced my way. Warm. Polite? Like I had no idea I was walking into my own execution. At 11, it arrived. A calendar invite. HR conversation, Wallace office. 11:30 May. I finished my coffee, reapplied lip balm, smoothed my blouse. Then I stood, picked up my pen and notebook like I'd done hundreds of times, and walked the long hallway. Denise was already seated when I entered. Brent stood, gesturing toward the chair across from him. Olivia, he said, a strange note of sympathy in his voice. Come in. I sat. He cleared his throat. First, I just want to say how much we appreciate your years of commitment to Haven Ridge. My ears blurred the rest. I knew this speech. I'd written versions of it for him when he needed to lay off junior staff with grace. Unfortunately, due to restructuring, there it is. We've made the difficult decision. I nodded slowly. So, you're eliminating my role. Brent hesitated. Yes, though I want to stress, this isn't a reflection of your work. It's just a strategic shift. The industry's changing. Is this decision final? I asked, tilting my head. He blinked. Yes, it's been approved by the board. Perfect, I said, folding my hands. Thank you. He paused, clearly expecting something else. Anger, tears, a raised voice. But I gave him nothing. Denise slid a folder across the table. Your severance package includes NDA terms as well. I nodded. Of course. I'll review it. Brent leaned forward, lowering his voice like we were old friends. I know this must be difficult. Actually, I said, standing slowly. It's clarifying. He looked up, startled. I offered him a smile. You're right. Brent, the industry is changing. He opened his mouth to respond, but I had already turned. I walked out of that office taller than I'd ever walked in. I didn't cry. Not when I packed up my desk. Not when a few colleagues offered stiff hugs or careful goodbyes. Not even when Denise said, we'll miss you. She didn't mean it, but I nodded anyway. I moved methodically like someone wrapping up a task. Not a life. What they didn't know was that I wasn't walking away empty-handed. I had archived every major client presentation I'd ever touched. I had documented patterns of mismanagement. I had 5 clients at least that had already hinted they'd follow me anywhere. Before logging out for the last time, I sent one email. Not to Brent, to Lena Matthews. Subject, thank you. Lena, I wanted to personally thank you for your trust and partnership over the years. My time at Haven Ridge is coming to an end, but I remain deeply committed to helping companies like yours grow. If you're open to continuing that work together, independently or elsewhere, I'd love to talk. Warmly, Olivia Hayes. I hit send at exactly 4. Was he near P? At 5. No, I stepped out of Haven Ridge & Co. for the last time. I didn't look back. The next morning, I slept in. No alarm, no early train, no inbox full of Brent's 11 p.m. panic texts. Just sunlight and silence. Around 10. Zoa. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a moment. I knew exactly who it was. I let it ring out. By noon, I had 3 missed calls. At 12:30 p.m., a text came in from Liam, a junior analyst I once mentored. Olivia, whatever you did, it's working. Lena just pulled her contract. Brent's freaking out. Everyone's panicking. I smiled into my tea. The glue was gone. And now the cracks were showing. At 2:00 p.m., Brent called again. This time, I answered. Olivia, he said quickly, voice tight. Listen, I just got off the phone with Lena Matthews. She said you reached out. I did. He exhaled. She misunderstood. She thinks you're leaving to work with a competitor. She's nervous. We can clear that up. There it was, the scramble. The damage control. I don't think she misunderstood anything. I said calmly. She just made a decision. Brent's voice sharpened. Are you working for someone else? I don't see how that's your concern. He hesitated. This isn't smart. Olivia, we have history, and this industry's small. I'm aware. I said, that's why I documented everything. Silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, you planned this. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because by the time I hung up, he already knew. He hadn't just fired me, he'd unleashed me. By Monday morning, the bleeding had begun. Havenridge & Co. opened its doors like any other day, phones ringing, assistants chasing down meeting notes, and Brent Wallace strutting through the office in his usual Navy power suit. But just beneath the surface, panic pulsed like an open wound. The first tremor hit at 9 m. Lena Matthews's official termination letter landed in Brent's inbox. Her firm's 7-figure contract was gone, effective immediately. No explanation, no grace period, just gone. I didn't need to be there to imagine the moment. I could picture Brent's face, the confusion tightening around his eyes, the disbelief, the rising panic. I could hear the way he'd shout for Denise or Mark, the CFO, demanding someone fix it. But Lena couldn't be talked back. She didn't want explanations. She wanted me. By noon, 2 more clients followed. One sent a 3-line exit notice. Another simply stopped answering calls. And Brent, he unraveled. Liam texted me at 12. Quite some Pete. He's losing it. Yelled at Denise. Then locked himself in his office. No one knows what to say. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I had already moved past caring. At 2. Cremise P. My phone rang again. Brent. I let it go to voicemail. At 3:01 Mo. He tried once more. This time, I answered, Olivia. He snapped, skipping any pretense. What the hell are you telling people? I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the city skyline from the co-working suite I'd rented 2 blocks from Vanguard Stratton's headquarters. I haven't told anyone anything, I said, sipping my tea. I simply said I was leaving. The rest, that's just people reading the signs. You know damn well this looks like sabotage. I laughed. It's not sabotage. Brent, it's gravity. You removed the foundation, and now the building's collapsing. I should have known you'd pull something like this, he muttered. You've always been. Say it. I interrupted, my voice colder than before. Say what you called me. Silence. You think I forgot, I said. You stood in front of our entire leadership team, drunk and smug, and called me a worthless dumbass. I mean, now you want me to clean up your mess. I didn't mean it like that, he said, his voice suddenly quieter. It was just office talk. No, I said. It was truth dressed up as a joke. And now here's mine. He inhaled sharply. You're working with Vanguard, aren't you? I didn't answer. The silence was enough. Do you realize what you're doing? He asked, desperation now dripping through his words. You're burning every bridge. No. Brent, I said calmly. I'm walking across the one you never saw me building. Then I ended the call. That week, Vanguard Stratton & Co. moved swiftly. They announced the acquisition of 2 of Havenridge's mid-size clients' firms I had long managed and advised behind the scenes. Julian Price called it a natural evolution in the press release. But inside the walls of Havenridge, it was a gut punch. At 5:03 that Thursday, Liam texted again. Emergency board meeting. CFO's freaking out. They're talking about leadership changes. I didn't smile. I just breathed deeper, because I knew what was coming next. On Friday morning, Bloomstone Business Weekly published a feature, Strategic Exodus at Havenridge & Co. Client's Defect. CO Under Fire. I read it twice before forwarding it to Elena Craig, my attorney. Her reply, you move fast. I'm impressed. They didn't see it coming. No, they didn't, but I had been planning for years. That afternoon, I walked into Vanguard Stratton's executive floor, not as a job applicant, as their newest senior partner. Julian greeted me in the glass-walled conference room with a quiet handshake. Welcome home, Olivia, he said. Your reputation came with you. I prefer results over reputation, I replied. He smiled. Good, because thanks to you, we're about to make very big moves. And just like that, I was no longer cleaning up anyone's mess. I was designing futures, my own, and everyone else's who believed in what I brought to the table. Back at Havenridge, the unraveling continued. One more client pulled out. 2 executives submitted resignation letters. And Brent, he finally stopped calling. But he hadn't given up. Not yet. It happened the following Tuesday. A knock on my office door. Soft. Hesitant. Out of place in a company that moved with precision and confidence. My assistant leaned in. Her voice dropped. Olivia, there's someone here to see you. I glanced up from my notes. A walk-in. She hesitated. It's Brent Wallace. For a moment, the air shifted. Not in fear. Not even in surprise. In clarity. I nodded. Give me 2 minutes. Then send him in. She closed the door behind her, and I let the silence stretch. I had imagined this moment once, maybe twice. Always vaguely. Always with the assumption that he'd never have the humility to follow through. And yet there he was. I stood, adjusted the cuffs of my blouse, then walked to the window. The skyline was gray, a soft drizzle clinging to the glass. Below, the city pulsed on. Let him see me with my back turned first. Let him feel small before I even said a word. The door creaked open. Olivia, I didn't turn. I waited. Let the seconds spool out like thread. Then I turned. Slowly. He looked aged. Not in years, but in wear. His tie was slightly askew. There were dark circles under his eyes. The signature bravado, the one he wore like an overpriced suit, was gone. He didn't sit. He didn't move past the threshold. He just looked at me. You really did it, he said quietly. You actually brought it all down. I raised an eyebrow. I think you did that part yourself. He exhaled, a sharp breath through clenched teeth. Lena, Westmark Group, Holson Tech, they're all gone. The board's threatening to remove me. Mark's jumped ship. I said nothing. He looked at me like a man crawling across desert sand. Desperate. Burned. You were planning this for how long? I wasn't, I said. Voice level. Not at first. But you gave me a reason. He chuckled dryly. Bitter. It was a joke. That night, you weren't even supposed to hear it. I smiled faintly. And yet, I did. You don't have to finish it, he said, finally stepping into the office. You proved your point. You made your move. You win. I studied him carefully. It wasn't anger in his voice anymore. It was fear. The realization that the person he'd discarded without hesitation had held the entire scaffolding together, and now he wanted a rope back up. I came to ask, he began, eyes darting away, if there's any chance, any way we could work something out. Maybe bring you in, consult, help fix things, just something. For a moment, I felt the weight of 17 years, the memory of long nights, missed dinners, cleaning up his mistakes, watching him take credit while I stood silent because I thought integrity meant patience. But this wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about clarity. I stepped closer, not with cruelty, but with finality. No, Brent, I said gently, there's nothing to fix. His jaw tightened. You think you've won. I tilted my head. I don't think I have. I know I have, because I stopped letting someone else decide my worth. He didn't move, just stood there, silent, defeated. Then, as if reaching for one last scrap of control, he asked the thing I never expected. Do you think I could work here? There it was. Not a plea, a collapse. I blinked. For a half second. Something flickered in me. Pity. Maybe, but it passed. Brent, I said, walking past him toward the door. You don't need a job. He turned to me, confused. You need a reckoning. Then I opened the door. You can see yourself out. He paused there for a beat. And then, without a word, stepped into the hall and vanished like a shadow that finally realized it didn't cast light. I closed the door behind him, turned, and leaned against the wood. It was quiet, so quiet. It felt holy. And for the first time since that awful night, the night of the video, I felt something new, weightless, free. A year passed. One long, strange, beautiful year. The office I worked in now overlooked the river. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like artwork. The desk was mine. The team was mine. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to ask for space in the room. I was the room. I'd become a senior strategy partner at Vanguard Stratton & Co. The firm had grown stronger with every client I'd brought in, not just because they trusted me, but because, unlike Brent, I trusted myself. I didn't hoard power. I taught others to wield it. I didn't silence rising voices. I made space for them. The irony, Brent's biggest fear, the one behind all those late-night digs and dismissive remarks, was never about me being incompetent. It was about me being better. He saw it before I did. One afternoon, as I was wrapping up a call with a health tech investor, my assistant, Rhea, peeked in. There's someone waiting in the lounge, she said. Young, nervous, says she just wanted 5 minutes with you. I raised an eyebrow. Did she say her name? Jessie Farrow. She's a junior associate at Harmon & Blake. Says she found you through the Lena Matthews profile in Forbes. For a moment, I sat still. Then I smiled. Send her in. Jessie entered, clutching a leather folder to her chest like a lifeline. Her voice shook slightly when she said hello. She looked the way I once did. ambitious, exhausted, trying not to show it. I just wanted to say, she began, "You're the reason I didn't quit last month." I tilted my head. I watched what happened with Haven Ridge. How you walked away, built something better. And I thought, maybe I don't have to stay small to survive either. She sat down across from me. "I guess I just wanted to know, how did you not give up when people told you that you didn't matter?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said the only truth that's ever mattered. Because I stopped listening to people who never truly saw me. Jessie blinked back tears. She nodded. She understood. And I remembered myself sitting at a desk at 10:43 p.m., trying to write a report I'd never get credit for. Telling myself someday this will matter. Turns out, it did. Not just for me, but for the people who needed someone to go first. That night, I opened a new notebook. Fresh cover, clean pages. On the first line, I wrote, "Your silence was your strength, but your voice is your legacy." I closed it, set it beside my wine glass, and walked to the window. The lights of the city sparkled below. A world that had once overlooked me, now quietly pulsed with possibility. My phone buzzed on the counter. A LinkedIn notification. Brent Wallace updated his profile. His new title, independent consultant. I stared at it for a second. Then I clicked ignore. I don't need to announce my win. I live it. Every day I wake up and choose where I go, what I build, who I become. Every young woman who walks through my door carries a piece of what I once survived and a spark of what I've now claimed. So if you're listening to this, if you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, mocked, remember this. My name is Olivia, not worthless, not replaceable, not just another employee, and neither are you. Not every war is loud. Sometimes it's won in silence through patience, dignity, and knowing your own worth when no one else does. Olivia never raised her voice. She didn't slam doors. She simply walked away and let the empire collapse without her. But this story is more than a satisfying comeback. It's a reminder that too many women, too many brilliant, steady, loyal women are dismissed, underestimated, and mocked by those who've been standing on their shoulders all along. And when those women decide they've had enough, they don't burn bridges. They build new roads. So if you've ever been told you're too quiet, too old, or easily replaceable, let Olivia's story stay with you. Let it remind you, you were never the problem. The problem was, they didn't recognize power when it didn't shout. If this story moved you, leave a comment below, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, real-feeling stories about dignity, justice, and voices that finally speak. Because the next one might just be yours.